So, Gizmodo, otherwise known as IO9, released an article recently about a statement made by Bob Iger, the president of Disney, the head guy at Disney, who's been a very controversial figure for quite some time. I mean, more so in the past couple of, I'd say a couple months, but really a guy who, when you're the head of Disney, which is such a conglomerate of a company, you're not going to be loved by everybody, right? And this article discusses a statement that he made talking about how less Star Wars is better. Now, what he's referring to here, and I'm going to go to the actual quote in this article here in a minute, is that he feels like Star Wars, there's too many Star Wars movies coming out at too rapid of a pace. Now, obviously, people are going to say, well, that's a cop-out answer because the MCU was putting out 2 movies a year and now they're putting out 3 movies a year. And that's a very good point, but the MCU works a bit differently because with the MCU, you kind of have these different characters having their own movies and then doing the big crossover films, every few years. But also, the MCU has built up a tremendous amount of equity with the fan base, whereas Star Wars has not. And that's really what we're going to talk about here in this video as I dissect what he's saying here. Now, obviously, I'm not the head of Disney. I'm not going to sit here and claim that I'm smarter than Bob Iger because you have to be a pretty smart guy to get to where you're at. But I'm pretty good at smelling some BS here, and there is BS in his statement. So what Bob Iger says is, I have said publicly that I think we made and released too many Star Wars films over a short period of time. I have not said that they were disappointing in any way. I have not said that I'm disappointed in their performance. I just think that there's something so special about Star Wars films, and less is more. Now, couple things that I want to discuss here. First of all, I don't entirely disagree with him on the less is more mentality when it comes to Star Wars. I wasn't around during the original run of Star Wars, the original trilogy from 1977, then 80 for Empire, 83 for Jedi. I wasn't born back then, so I didn't see it, but from everybody who was around back then, Star Wars was an event film. It was a movie that, yes, you had to wait 3 years to find out if Luke Skywalker really was the son of Darth Vader. You had to find out how they were going to rescue Han Solo. You had to find these out over the course of, wait years. And remember, during those times, the EU, there was no, we had a couple of books, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which wound up being non-canon after the Empire film came out. There was no, video games back then for Star Wars that told an extra story, like side stories, like some of the more recent games have done. There was no comic books for Star Wars at that time, to my knowledge, that actually expanded the universe and told us what happened in between 2 movies. So you had to just sit there and wait. And we felt that a bit more during the prequel era, because I was around during the prequel era, and I can tell you that no matter what you may think about the prequels, whether you love them, whether you hate them, whether you like a couple of them, whether you're a fan of Revenge of the Sith and you don't like the other 2, whatever your opinion is, those were event films. Those were big, huge movies. I remember vividly seeing promotion for Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace was one of the most hyped up movies in the history of films in my generation. You had Entertainment Tonight covering it. You had MTV covering it. You had specials, like interviews with George Lucas all over the place. Leonard Maltin was talking about it. The Star Wars prequels were a massive deal. And I feel like Phantom Menace was probably the most hyped one because it was the first one in 16 years or whatever. I think it was 16 years. But, when Attack of the Clones was coming out, they had 4 trailers, and I remember being on the internet, on theforce.net, and then Revenge of the Sith came out, and that got a huge promotion too, because, okay, this is the good one now. Now we're going to see Obi-Wan versus Vader. Now we're going to see, how Anakin becomes Darth Vader. Huge movies, massive, huge promotion behind those films, and part of the reason is because of how spread apart they were. They were event films. However, in this era, I do feel like 1 movie a year should theoretically be fine. Maybe 1 every 2 years might work better, but 1 a year, theoretically, based on their formula, which is to make these Star Wars anthology films like Rogue One and Solo, based on those, it could work. I feel like 1 movie a year could have worked. What really is going on here is, one of those 4 movies, which is Solo, did not do so well at the box office. It didn't make what they wanted it to make at all. And if you remember, Solo came out not only just 6 months, actually it was 5 months after Last Jedi, but also Solo came out during a time when Star Wars fans were really, really upset at Last Jedi. Obviously, not all of them, but a lot of them were. A big chunk of them did not like the direction Last Jedi took the Star Wars franchise. And there was some boycotting and things like that, which may or may not have factored into how much money the movie made, but there really wasn't much interest. There was a lot of problems with Solo. It was promoted very late. It was a story that people didn't even want to see. Like, most fans didn't care about a Han Solo Han Solo story, and also the fact that it wasn't Harrison Ford and the guy who they got just didn't capture that Han Solo spirit. There were a lot of things going against this movie. You know, obviously the behind the scenes stuff too, with the directors changing and all that. The movie didn't do so well. Now, Bob Iger saying, "Oh, I'm not disappointed in how much money they made." No, because Last Jedi, Rogue One, and Force Awakens made a ton of money, right? And I think Rise of Skywalker will also make a ton of money. But, and even though he's right about the whole less is more thing, I still feel like this is a cop-out answer. I think he's saying less is more now because of the fact that he wants to kind of give the fans time to, I don't know if it's heal or to forget about what Last Jedi did. And the reality is some fans are never going to forget about it. Even if Rise of Skywalker fixes some things, you're always going to have that, you know, that group of fans are just not going to like Star Wars ever again and complain about it. Just, that's how it is. But I feel like the whole less is more thing that he's talking about, I think there's truth to it. However, I also feel like if you make good movies, here's the bottom line. I'm going to bottom line this video right now for you. If you make good movies that people want to see, that the majority like, not everyone's going to like your movie. You're going to have people who don't like it, whatever, that's fine. But if you make fun movies, because Solo I thought had a lot of problems, but I had a fun time watching it. You know, it wasn't the best, but, you know, if you make fun films, I think you can rebuild that equity with the audience. It's going to take some time, but I do think the audience might be forgiving of this over time. I think that they do have to step away from the Skywalker saga. They have to focus on a different saga, maybe Old Republic stuff, whatever they want to do. But I feel like that's the right move. It's not about making less movies. It's about making good movies. You understand that? It's not about making less movies. It's about making good movies. So that's pretty much it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you want more Star Wars? Because honestly, I'm not that interested anymore. I mean, I used to be at one time, and I'm really, honestly, truly not. You know, it sucks, but that's how I feel. Let me know. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.